East 10 years ago. Now I can't see nothing without it. Huh? So I think it's about time that I take this uniform off and put one of those on. After almost 30 years, I can take it off. If you would, help me help you in the Pledge of Allegiance, shall we? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's the call to continue on. While you enjoy your salad and you know, talk around the table, I just want to share a couple of things with you. Mainly so that you understand, or get an idea, if you will, what goes on out there outside the continental United States. And then particularly what happened to one 43-year-old man, who should have been out there anyway. I'm too old, can't run that fast. But in particular, what happened to one old codger such as myself. As some of you know, over the past 15 months, I've been recovering from an injury sustained in Afghanistan. I'll never forget the accounts of what happened that day. Well, the two soldiers who pulled me out of a very intense situation, which allowed this native of Tennessee, and I still think it should be 10 out, but as this native of Tennessee struggled to get back on his 2 feet. On 20 December 2010, I bet you can guess, I lost my right lower leg, the enemy of the body. My wife and I, after some counseling by some very good doctors, made the decision to have my right foot removed because we realized getting back up on 2 feet was more important than lying in bed for 2 years, hoping that reconstructive surgery would work. Not only that, you lay there for a couple of years and start feeling sorry for yourself, and it just don't work. And so, as we were informed, we made an informed decision to go ahead and have that foot removed, the right one. And you know, her and I never looked back on that. Now remember that happened 15 months ago or so. You know, I'm standing up here in front of you telling you that you can sustain an injury if you have the resiliency, all right, to get back up on your feet. My wife and I, my wife's and my focus was obviously to get back to the normal way of life. And that meant doing the things that I was doing prior to the injury. Leading soldiers, doing physical fitness, and being a husband became my source of motivation. I set out to return to work, which meant I had to go through some very intense physical therapy, as you can imagine. These were very large challenges, and based on these challenges, I had to make some more decisions. One is I had to separate from my wife again. 2 is I had to go to that state down under, it's Texas. And I went down to San Antonio to a place called the Center for the Intrepid. How many of y'all have heard of the Center for the Intrepid? It is a remarkable organization, and it is funded by donations, and it is run privately for the sole purpose of putting young warriors back on their feet, and some not so young. I went to the Center for the Intrepid to learn to run again. In 5 short months after I had my foot removed, I took my first running 8 months, I keep kind of on the plate, I should have done that. 8 months after that, I took charge of a 800-person battalion known as No Sweat. And you can Google that, you can watch some of my footage from one week in Afghanistan, it's pretty cool. And I took that over where I went back to leading soldiers and accomplishing those goals that I set out for myself, as opposed to doing that lay in bed for 2 years. And as I slowly began to take these soldiers on and interact with them more, I figured, you know what? I can run again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge the soldiers. So I don't know if you've seen these guys out here, these gals out here that are running with a C under one of their knees. It really does look like a C. It's called a flex front foot. That thing is fast. It has nothing to do with me. Without it, I couldn't run. So I started running these soldiers, and I slowed at first, 3 miles, then 5 miles, then 10 miles, and then I said, you know what? I bet you I can do a half marathon. What about that? And so, after a half a dozen 10-mile runs, one day in the Army, 10 miles, 2 half marathons, some of you may know it as Clarksville Go Commando. We just had it back in October. And no, I did not wear those shorts. If you know what I'm talking about. A little revealing. And I currently have my eyes set on the Music City Marathon coming up 28 April 2012. And all of this speaks to resiliency. It speaks to standing in front of others and wanting to get back to where you were in the shortest amount of time. Far too often, we get hit with a challenge, and in today's society, it feels like we succumb to that challenge. We don't meet it head on. And that's just not the way I believe it should be. I believe we're faced with a challenge. We hit it with a challenge, but you can't do it without the proper support. And the support of your family, your community, and the doctors that are educated in those needs that put folks like us back inside the circle of the workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that a person can do whatever they set out to do. I think with the right attitude, motivation, and support, you can get back up on your feet, jump right back into what it is you want to do, and take on new challenges. In closing, there's a lot of soldiers who are back at work because of leaders like you who support leaders like me out front. And we couldn't do this, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Wounded Warrior Project a little. And I put an ooh on it because that's what we do in the Army, you know. And the disabled veterans organizations all over the United States. I ask that we continue to support these organizations, you know, as leaders. And in saying that, I thank you for your time today. Aristotle.
You know, one of the most trite and cliched things you can say when you're introducing a speaker is that our speaker today really needs no introduction. Having said that, I will tell you our speaker today doesn't really need an introduction. You can read his bio on page 15. You can probably read it better than I on page 15 of the program. And past District Governor Tom Ashford did an excellent job of introducing him at breakfast this morning for those of you that were up early enough to be here at that time. Suffice it to say that our speaker is currently a trustee of the Rotary Foundation. He has been a vice chairman of the Rotary Foundation, and he has been both a vice president and a director of Rotary International. Truly an impressive resume. Fellow Rotarians, please join me in giving a warm Mid-South Pets welcome to our speaker, John Germ.
Thank you very much for the diligence that you put forth to continue your life and to help others as we go along. And then they had these singers up here. Well, I think Mike had the song. I'm not real sure. But thank you for what you're doing. And most importantly, thank you for buying that Jack Daniels that helps us along on our fight for polio. He happens to have 3 bottles, by the way, Frank, so he's caught up with you. It's a pleasure for me to be here again to talk to you about something that's very dear to my heart. As a matter of fact, it's extremely dear to my heart. And that is Rotary's program of the highest priority, the eradication of polio. As the Sergeant Major was speaking a few minutes ago, I thought about how important his words were when he talked about perseverance. He talked about setting a goal, and he talked about fulfilling that goal. It's a Chinese proverb that says, a journey of 1,000 miles must begin with one single step. Without that journey, without that dream, more than 2 billion children would not have received that vaccine that can keep them from being crippled or even dying. Well, how did that come about? It came about by a man, as we commonly refer to as down under, Clem Renoff from Australia. He was coming back from a trip that most past presidents travel quite a bit. They travel around a lot. And he was reading Time magazine, and he read in there where smallpox had been eradicated. He called a district governor, so district governors get ready, and said, is there anything that we can do of that same magnitude that would put Rotary in the forefront in doing good in the Rotary world? So in 1978-79, President Clinton talked to one of his governors named John Sever. John Sever was in Washington, D.C., doctor. So he did some research and came back and said, yes, there is. It can be done. It is polio. It's identifiable. There is a vaccine that would help us with that polio, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take money. So James Bomar was the president of Rotary International that was going to follow Sir Clem. Sir Clem knew that this was not going to be a single one-year project. So he contacted Jim Bomar to see if he would go along with this program. So after reading all of this, the journey continued when the Rotary in September 1979 made a 5-year commitment of US $760,000 to provide vaccine and to vaccinate 6 million children in the polio campaign. Jim Bomar went there to sign that agreement. The video you had right there a few minutes ago was where Jim Bomar was there in the Philippines to sign the agreement, which really began our second step. First step being commitment. The second step to actually go there to stand by our commitment. James signed that. He's from Shelbyville, Tennessee, right here in our area. But the most important thing I think that he told me about that, because he was there when I was district governor, that after he signed the agreement, he went out to provide that vaccine to children. As he was placing the vaccine to a little girl's mouth, he felt something pull at his pant leg. And as they pulled at his pant leg, he didn't want to look down because he was afraid that he would spill those 2 precious drops. So as he put those drops in the mouth and he finished up, he looked down and there was a crawler. Mangled arms, crippled, crawling around. That's the 12-year-old boy that was pulling his pant leg. As he looked down to the boy looked up and said, "Thank you, mister. That's my sister. She will not be crippled as I am." That's not what he really said. What he really thought was, "Thank you, Rotary. Thank you for your commitment to making children better and safer. Because of your dedication, my sister will not be crippled." What a fantastic story that is. Well, our journey continued on. 1984, under the leadership of President Carlos Fonseca, the Polio 2005 committee was established. It was established to determine how we could eradicate polio by the end of 2005, the anniversary year of Rotary. We all know that that didn't happen. We know that didn't happen because of religious problems, financial problems, governmental problems, and that there wasn't sufficient money. So Rotary set about 1985 to 88 to raise $120 million. We raised $247 million, and that still wasn't enough money. But the World Health Alliance said, "You know, I think Rotary's got a good idea." Now, quite personally, I think they said, "Rotary's got $247 million, how did I get for it?" But anyway, they decided that polio eradication was a top priority. And World Health Alliance joined Rotary. We didn't join them. They joined us in our quest to eradicate polio. Well, we took another campaign, still didn't have enough money, 2003, 2002, 2005, and said we wanted to raise $80 million. Well, we raised $135 million. Rotarians were still dedicated to the cause that was set back in 1979 to provide vaccine and to keep children from being crippled or dying from that disease which was curable, which is curable, called polio. But as I said, in 2005, our campaign did not end. I happened to be in Nigeria. I went to Nigeria in 2004 to find out only that after I got there, from flying all night long, and meeting with several people there, going through roadblocks, seeing lights shining in your face, getting to the hotel, and I really thought that when I got to the hotel, I was doing really great. I was going to get about 5 or 6 hours sleep, and I was going to be fine for the next day. We got into the hotel at 3 o'clock. They said, "We'll pick you up at 5. I said, "Well, okay, we can make this work." They took me to my room after we went through these iron gates, and I really felt at home. The room was called the Elvis Presley Suite. Well, Judy and I then went to NID in India. When we were in India, we were in Uttar Pradesh. I don't know that I have ever seen so much devastation in my life. So much filthy water, dirty streets, garbage all over the place, and yet the mothers brought their children to receive those 2 precious drops of vaccine because they too wanted to save their children. You see, There is nothing more precious than a small baby. Nothing in the world. So why shouldn't we work to save all of those children? 2010, Judy and I had a chance to go back to Nigeria. When we were in Nigeria, the whole thing had changed. The health minister was on board. The president of the country said that Nigeria would not be the last place to have polio. I doubt it, but that's okay. I think that they may be the last place to have polio. And Nigeria is creating quite a problem for us because they affect all of Africa. And that's a large country that is transporting that polio vaccine from one part of the country to the other. But it was still a wonderful opportunity to see Rotary at work. Rotary at work. November 13th of this past year, we had a chance to go back to India. While we were in India, this mother came up to me. She had her small baby, 4 weeks old. 4 weeks old. But she stood in line so that baby could get those 2 precious drops. And when she looked up, and I looked at her, she didn't speak my language, and I didn't speak her language. But that language that she spoke was a universal language. Smile, that said thank you. That said more than any words could ever say, because she was most appreciative of what Rotary had done. How many of you have had that opportunity? Stand up. I know there's several here, Bob, you did. Stand up. You've seen that effect on those mothers. You've seen that effect on those children as they receive those precious drops. So you know, like I do, the impact that Rotary has had around the world in producing, helping children not to be crippled. Well, where did we start? When we started, we had over 1,000 cases a day, 125 countries. And let me tell you where we are now. That was in 1985. There was 4 endemic countries. Right now, there are 3 endemic countries. Before we started, Nigeria, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Those cases in 2011 were reduced to 340 for the entire year in the endemic countries. We still have 310 cases in non-endemic countries because of the transmission of the polio virus from the endemic countries. Well, the great news is that India has now been declared polio-free. The picture you see there is a young girl named Trustee. She is the last case in India. She will go down in history because she's the last case. Thank to each and every one of you sitting in this room. Those were your contributions, those were your dedication, those were your prayer, that Rotary, in fact, will succeed in eradicating polio. But we also have to remember that there is nobody safe until everybody is safe from polio. It just won't happen. There was 18 cases in China last year that got exported over there, or imported from Pakistan. So we have to keep up the diligent work. We have to continue to do those things that are necessary. They don't want to hear me. We have to keep up the work. We have to keep going. As we talked a few minutes ago, as the Sergeant Major said, you've got to have resolve. And I don't think there's anything that Rotary has not done that could be done and has resolved. Who else would have taken on the project in 1979 and continued with that project? Nobody else, I don't believe. Well, there's been obstacles in our campaign. There's been obstacles in the campaign to eradicate polio, whether it be the wars, would-be religious beliefs fighting within there, or the term saying that it's an American plot to sterilize a girl's child, as I was told by the health minister in India. It's not that at all. It's how do you save babies and how do you save children. But a senior health official calls us, Rotary, the conscience of the polio eradication campaign. My friends, without a conscience, without spirit, and without spark, we will not be successful. But we will be successful because Rotary promised the children of the world that we would in fact eradicate polio. I believe firmly that polio will not be eradicated without Rotary. Well, let me bring you forward to a little bit of time when a man that has more money than all but 8 countries in the entire world, all but 8 countries in the entire world, he can spend his money wherever he wants to. He can pretty well walk wherever he wants to. And he can pretty well do anything he wants to do. But on November the 16th, 2007, at 1 o'clock Central Time, this man sent a wire to the Rotary Foundation for $100 million. $100 million. I've never seen that much money in my life, probably never will. But he said, Rotary needs to do 2 things. 1, I want you to spend this money by December the 31st of 2008. 2, I want you to match that money by June the 30th of 2010. Now here's a guy that said, I've had confidence in Rotary. I trust you. I know that you're a man of your word, men and women of your word. I know that if you say you will do this, you'll do it. So spend my money. Well, Rotarians are people of the word. We spend his money. Then I got asked to head the campaign for $100 million. Well, I didn't think that was too bad. That's pretty easy to do. You know, you got 1.2 million Rotarians, so surely we can raise $100 million. Well, we were about halfway through and had 45,348,000. I remember that number very well. And Bill Gates said, I'll give you $255 million if you'll raise another $100 million. Well, how do you turn down a match like that? I know you can do it. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about you. Well, but he said, the confidence I've got in Rotary, and the reason I'm giving this money to Rotary, is a reward. It's a reward for what you have done to affect the lives of over 2 billion children. He said, I'm giving it to you versus any of your other partners, whether it be WHO, CDC, UNICEF, or anybody else. Because Rotary has the desire, but more importantly, Rotary has the passion to spend that money where it is needed and when it is needed. So we took on that challenge, and our challenge was to raise $200 million to match Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's gift to Rotary. We did it. We announced it in January of this year. And because of your dedication, your commitment, your contributions, Bill and Melinda Gates, through Jeff Rakes, the president of their foundation, gave Rotary another $50 million. And to match that 50, we're not going to ask you for any money. However, on each of the gold forms that each president-elect has, there's a place on there for you to continue to contribute to the polio campaign, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But we also ask you not to reach into the pockets. We ask you to, if you wanted to, make contributions from yourself. but also to go out into the community, to do great projects within the community, to make the public more aware of what Rotary is and what Rotary does. We had the equestrian games up in Lexington. We've had baseball games, ice hockey games. We've had motorcycle riders. We've had everything you can possibly think of to help raise money. Well, we have been successful, but there happens to be some disappointment in this campaign. How can you say as a Rotary Club president, or how can you say as a member of a Rotary Club, that polio is the most important thing that we as Rotarians can do to keep our promise? And yet there are 8,498 clubs that have not contributed one dime to polio since we started this campaign on December the 1st of 2007. That's a crying shame. That is a shame to say I'm a Rotarian and I've not contributed to Rotary's #1 priority program. Well, where are we at? As of December the 19th, we were $205,472,537.25. Give yourself a round of applause. Polio has robbed a lot of people of their lives. It's made a lot of families spend an awful lot of time where they could be productive going out and getting jobs because they're at home taking care of their children. Another foundation just recently, yesterday as a matter of fact, we received 2 checks. One check is for $1 million, and the other check is for $10,000. We can't say who it's from. We can tell you it got directed to Rotary through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, because you see, they still believe that Rotary will succeed. Do we still believe? I hope so. But let me tell you a story from India. Last year, there was a group of people that were on NID. They went to this one house, and each of the houses are marked with the numbers above them, how many times somebody's been there, whether it's been 2 times, 3 times. We're up to some 18 or 19 times in India because of the dirty water and everything. It gets diarrhea, so it flushes out the vaccine as fast as you can get it to them. So they knocked on the door and come to the hot door. They looked in there and they saw this baby that was crippled, little boy. And as they looked in there, they said to the mother, "What's this child's name?" And the answer came back, "He has no name. He has polio, and he is useless." He has no name. He has polio, and he is useless. My fellow Rotarians and guests, that's what the foundation, and that's what you and I are committed to solving. We don't need any child to be born without a name. Every person is useless. That's not true. That's not true. And we can stop that. We can get there early enough to give them that vaccine. We now have the best opportunity in the world, the best opportunity in the world to eradicate polio. The WHO, CDC, and this past weekend the Foundation reconfirmed that Rotary and our partner organizations have declared this an emergency situation, that working together we can in fact complete our task. Now, we're not going to complete it this year, but we got a chance of next year eradicating polio. Still takes 3 years for certification. We can get there. We can do it. It costs about $1 billion a year to continue this campaign. $1 billion. Because you see, all the countries that don't have polio, including the United States, New Zealand, Australia, have to continue to provide that vaccine to those children, because none of us want our children to have that problem. It takes all of us. Our goal was not $200 million. Our Our goal is not $250 million. Our goal is the certification of the eradication of polio. We can do it. We must do it because we promised the children. This last week's foundation meeting, the trustees said that we will provide 50 cents from the rural fund for every $1 that is given from DDL for 5 years, because we need to be sure that we are there. Let me close by a poem that I truly believe in. It was given by a prayer that was given by a former chaplain of the United States Senate. It said, "I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And that what I can do, by the grace of God, I will do." With the grace of God, if each of us will do our own little part, we will be successful. And I thank you for what you have done. I thank you for what you're doing. And I thank you for what you're going to do. Thank you very much.